Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your day for a brief committee of the whole. We are one member short for a quorum, which means that as a committee of the whole, we will not take action tonight, but we will still facilitate a discussion, and we will make that decision at a subsequent meeting. So our item that we have to discuss tonight as committee of the whole pertains to CIP and our capital projects ranking for the 2020 budget process. The item is discussion and possible action regarding the ranking and prioritization process for the 2020 CIP process. And you'll recall that about 5 years ago, we changed our CIP process and we moved from a CIP committee that handled all of that process and made the recommendation. We changed that to facilitate the ranking of all of the CIP project requests through a committee of the whole process where all 11 council members were then asked to rank and score the requests. So we've now had 4 budget cycles where we've had the council doing the rankings. And in the last 3 of those years, I've heard from council members of some feedback a few different directions. So some feel that it is very time-consuming process and not working at City Hall or not working in the departments or close enough with the departments, they feel that it is very difficult for them to prioritize the needs of departments who are essentially doing those tasks every day, who really know where the core needs lie. We've had some difficulty getting all of the members to return the scoring sheets on time or at all. And so we are not often ranking those and taking those averages with 11 sets of score sheets among us. It's usually sometimes more like 8 or 9. And so we're not getting a full rank from all 11 districts anyway. And so in the past, and the question that we have to discuss and answer is, do we want to continue with a process where committee of the whole and all 11 council members are tasked with the ranking and scoring, or would you wish to return to a CIP committee process, which is what's often used by many municipalities and counties, to go through the minutia of the scoring and the presentations and the ranking? That list of recommendations that shakes out of that committee would still be brought back to Finance and Council and incorporated into the 2020 budget, whereby adjustments could be made throughout the process, but you wouldn't all be tasked with doing the ranking sheets based on a 5 or a 10-minute presentation from a department head, which is the way we've been getting it. You know, we're not there doing the work. We bring them up to the podium, they make their best spiel, and we rank. And, you know, sometimes we take a tour of their facilities to, you know, get a better grasp of what the needs are and at least see what we're ranking. But we don't always have that luxury. And so when we had a CIP committee, we had a blended result in the scoring. We had 3 staff people score and 3 council members score. And so that, at that time, the original committee was made up of the finance director, the public works director, and the city planner, I believe. And the 3 council members were the capital projects and street maintenance chairman, the finance chairman, and the council president. When any of those chairmanships were the same person as the council president, then the vice chairman of whatever committee was duplicated was put on there as an additional council member. So we then had a blended result. You had 50% of that ranking was done by staff who's familiar with the needs and the comprehensive plan. And then you had 3 council members doing it, and then those projects, once they shook out, came forward as a recommendation. And so you could return to that process, or you could continue. But if that's what we want to discuss tonight, as far as how you guys feel about all of it. Because last year we had 3 or 4 complaints that it took an awful lot of time, and a number of our members didn't feel that they knew enough about what happens within the departments to make educated selections and prioritize. Right, go ahead, Pat.
I agree, it does take a lot of time, and I guess I didn't know there was another way. But I just kind of, grinned and bore it because I thought, okay, this is the not fun part of this job. If we went to a CIP committee, would they continue to hear presentations from department heads? Because I do feel that's
Yes.
very valuable, and they make their pitch, and then
They would present to
whoever they're pitching to
the
can
department
ask
heads would still
questions.
present. The committee would ask them questions. That committee may also take tours if it's necessary to make informed decisions. If they need to see a certain piece of equipment or a certain facility that's making a request, that they could certainly do that, go out in the field and take a tour if necessary too.
And any member of the council was interested, you'd come and hear those.
Yes, because it would still be an open meeting. Anytime you have
And-
3 council members in one place, it's an open meeting.
And if, once we get the recommendation, we have that opportunity to tweak it. Like, I mean, we did a couple of things last
Yes,
year.
as far as moving projects above and below the line, we certainly then could analyze the CIP committee's rationale in placing the projects in the order that they did. You know, if there was a critical need in a department that they were aware of, that's emerged, they would certainly be able to walk through that. But yes, that certainly could be done. Do you have something to add, Mary Ann? Go
Oh, I
ahead.
was just going to say, in the past, after the CIP committee was done with it, it went directly into the budget. But we could have one last step where instead of it going directly into the budget, it came before the committee of the whole for any of those tweakings before it went into the budget too. That would be, you know, one option.
So they could review it, but then not necessarily be forced to submit rankings.
Right, so, right, they would just
Save everybody a
see-
couple days of time.
Yeah,
Well, 3 or 4 days, actually.
right.
I like that idea very much, Madam Chair, is what Marianne has suggested. And I can't remember when we changed from the previous way.
2014.
It was 2014, because I know I've been serving since 2006 without, and Karen, you've been on the board since.
I think the
a little bit
15
earlier
budget
than
was
that.
the first one that we had impacted by that, wasn't it?
So it just, and it is arduous. It is arduous and time-consuming. And again, as obviously, we don't necessarily have our finger on the exact knowledge necessary to give a good decision. Where, yeah, that sounds good, or that, you know.
It does, it
Everyone
has
can-
been kind of coming down to a sales pitch. It almost feels like,
The
you know,
staff know it.
they know what their
They
needs
know
are,
it.
but they're relegated to a 10-minute presentation at the podium and then some question and answer with us if we choose to ask them. And then after that, they're completely out of the mix.
And they
So,
really have, they know what is of essence, what is of concern, what really affects their workers, et cetera, or infrastructure. And I think that, going back to that, we should recommend that for a future meeting to approve that as the rule.
to return to a CIP
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah.
And then bring the results of
With
that.
knowledgeable staff on there who have their finger on what, and then we can listen to it either
Understand the logic behind.
during the meetings and especially then have one last listen as a,
Right, because then we wouldn't have to have the entire council sit through all the presentations either. That committee would go through that process with them, and they'd have some flexibility in scheduling then as well.
so I like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
would
Pat.
not be comfortable if it went straight from that committee to into the budget.
Into the
and say,
budget.
Oh, there's the budget.
So you want
But
to
I
take
think it
their
needs
results
come
to
back.
committee of the whole for review,
Yeah. 'Cause I
rather than a
think-
complete
I think
rank.
especially last year, I think we made some good changes, you know?
We did, and then we can talk through those changes as far as the need and the why, and, you know, if some shifting needed to happen, it would certainly happen here still. What are your thoughts? Dawn and Karen like that idea too? What do you think, Becky? Okay, I think we all, the 7 of us are of one mind that we kind of want to return to a CIP committee structure, and then once it's gone through the presentations and the ranking, that we would bring their ranking findings to committee of the whole before we insert them into the budget. That, we'd expect to do that probably late July, early August, go through that process. And so to make that final decision, the committee of the whole will have to make a vote on a recommendation when it can all be together. I mean, we're 1 member short, so we can't take definitive action tonight on it, but we can certainly, we'll have minutes from this discussion as a non-acting committee of the whole. And we'll take that vote then, once we have at least 8 members present. And then move it forward. Have the staff and the committee plan on that type of a structure then, unless there's strong feelings to the other side. But, you know, I think anytime we are offered the ability to make an educated decision and expedite that process so that it is a lot of sit through 2 or 3 nights of presentations, and then 2 committee of the wholes to get the rankings done, and then and quite a number of worksheets also to complete. So if you guys would like to delegate that off to a committee, we could certainly bring these results to that final decision. Go ahead, Marion.
I think in the past, I was trying to see, it was made up of the council president, the SISM chair, right?
Because it was capital projects and street maintenance, yes.
Right.
That's where the infrastructure angle came from.
And then the finance chair.
Yes.
Or a designee. And then it was myself and the director of public works, and then
And the city planner.
in the city planner or community development director.
Either.
So do you like that structure, or do you want to tweak that a bit? Or, you could do just,
In the past, when we had duplication, where the committee chair and the council president were the same person, we ran into that when Ed Gale was chairing SISM, and we ran into it when I was chairing SISM, before we went to the new structure. What we did then was we went to that committee and brought the vice chairman up onto the CIP committee.
that's right.
And so then you'd still have your 3 council members. You wouldn't have one person operating in dual or triple capacity.
What about having Ms. Bali involved also?
Oh,
Parks,
so we could. I think the reason.
If she wants.
Yeah, I think the reason we had designated the director of public works is because he's got an engineering background, and, a lot of the things relate to somewhat engineering. And, of course, myself for the financial aspect. And then the planner was because, really, a lot of this is supposed to fit within our comprehensive plan, where we're figuring out where is the city going to grow, how is it going to grow, and the planner is, well prepared for assimilating that information into the CIP requests. So I think that's why we've never had any other departments.
okay.
Well, and we kind of wanted to balance the result as well, because if you have 3 and 3, then you have 3 elected officials and 3 staff. And so then you've got a blended result, because you should have your institutional knowledge for what the needs are, and, who knows what they who know what the practical application is and the effect on their workforce. And then, you'd
Well-
still have 3 council members.
And then certainly anyone's welcome to attend too.
Well, that's the thing, and as part of that discussion, even though they're not scoring, if any of the other council members sat in and had an opinion, they'd certainly be heard.
Certainly, that helps too.
Sure.
Sure, thank
Go
you.
ahead, Pat.
The advantage of that makeup right now is that all of the city positions you mentioned are all people who've been around for a few years, and they have that perspective. And say if the director of public works just started today, you wouldn't want to put that person on that committee right away, maybe.
Right.
Or maybe have a designee, but these people have been around for a while. Like you say, public works is kind of all-encompassing.
Well, they're involved in a lot of different
They're
departments.
everywhere,
things,
so, yeah, I think it's good.
Okay. All right, well, why don't we won't take official action because we don't have enough people, but we'll produce minutes from this. We'll circulate it to the council members that we're missing, and then we'll schedule a session where we can have a full quorum, and we'll make our final decision then and go from there. But thank everybody for coming out tonight for a special session. My hope was that we would be done well in advance, so everyone who has a neighborhood group meeting can get to their neighborhood group. And I think a couple that we are missing skipped this meeting because they have their neighborhood group, and I don't think they realized how short of a discussion this would actually be. But we can adjourn for now if there's a motion to adjourn, and,
Can't have action on it.
oh, we don't adjourn if we don't have action. See, there's a step we can skip to then. All right.
Yes, we go home.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming down.